Welcome again for our 12 o'clock shows every Sunday afternoon and straight to Shashank. Will there be a lockdown? Will there be no lockdown? Is lockdown beneficial? Is lockdown not beneficial? What are the scientific perspectives of a lockdown? Is it necessary in our context in the state of Maharashtra and in other states which are as badly affected as the state of Maharashtra with COVID?
So first thing is there is no need to panic at all. And lockdown was necessary for the first time because our healthcare infrastructure was caught napping because of the sudden surge of COVID. Now we are in the second surge. If our healthcare infrastructure in the city of Mumbai is adequate, the adequate beds, ICU beds, oxygen, availability of everything in healthcare infrastructure, lockdown does not serve any purpose. Lockdown word has become like a taboo in India, in Maharashtra, and across the world. And lockdowns have been counterproductive. So if you look at the public health data and published literature, lockdowns in the first phase, when there is underpreparedness of the healthcare system to cope up with a sudden surge, is definitely having some utility. But usually in the second surge, when everybody knows about the virus, but the only thing is that the exponential growth of geometric progression of the current virus may limit some geographies to go into micro containment zones. Now, the problem which has happened, Dr. Shetty Guru Anna, is that we have suddenly had an explosion of the sheer number of cases. And at least 80% of these cases are asymptomatic. And they are the spreaders and super spreaders who don't know that they are harboring the disease because they don't have any symptoms. And that's why it is exponentially being passed on to others. How do you break that chain? The only way we can break that chain is by double masking, appropriate masking, and unmasking only when you are alone. Even at family level at home, if you are going out and you're coming back home, you should be a little different from others. Then you can completely break the chain. I don't think the lockdown has to be a self lockdown in our mind. The lockdown has to be within our own self. The lockdown has to be for our own family members. So unless and until it is mandatory to really go out, venture out, I think for the next 14 days, if we sit at home and we can manage most of our activity from home, that is ideal. But India is a very unique country. It is a very heterogeneous country. People come from different sects, different ethnic backgrounds, different socio-economic status. And because of that, probably economically, the livelihood is equally important. And therefore, the economic hardship of lockdown is unaffordable. And the financial disaster due to lockdown is unaffordable. So probably restrictive measures for a couple of weeks may help you to stem the surge of the pandemic. But in general, lockdowns in the second or third wave have been counterproductive and have not helped. It only allows you a little breathing time for healthcare infrastructure to build up capacities. Currently, if the capacities for healthcare infrastructure are enough to absorb the current trend of the rise of the cases, I don't think we need to look at lockdown. So many people will ask me a question, Guru Anna, ki Bombay reports 10,000 cases. 8,000 don't need anything. They can be managed very well at home. They should not run behind a bed. If they really deteriorate in the first or second week, people are forgetting Corona timetable is 2 to 3 weeks. Then probably they should go to not a hospital, but a Corona care facility, or maybe even a hotel which will allow you quarantine and get digitally connected with a medical doctor. So I think my answer is very clear that lockdown is not a strategy unless the healthcare infrastructure of that geography is overburdened and only helps you to prepare, but it doesn't, and it only postpones. So what is necessary is a self lockdown in our mind to 100% adhere COVID appropriate behavior. If you mask out and mask in means you take your mask yourself and throw out the virus. That is the best strategy to chase the virus away.
Thank you. What is the difference between the first wave and the second wave? Is the second wave more dangerous than the first wave as it occurred 100 years ago? What are the things that people should keep in mind apart from masking so that they are calm and they will face the second surge with equanimity and samanta?
So, Guru Anna, very rightly you said, second wave of all pandemics across the world, whether it was Spanish flu or now, have been a little more harsher and quicker and faster. So this current COVID wave, the rate of rapidity of transmission is faster, but record recovery is also faster. and the case fatality rate is lower. But these clusters are coming up quick and fast. Younger population is getting affected compared to the first wave. Children are getting affected compared to the first wave, and everybody is recovering. But in the second week, if you miss out the happy hypoxia, then you may land up dead. And we have seen that happening in people who have been little oblivious or overconfident. So I think for 2 weeks you need to be 24/7 vigilant on our health measures. So that is something very, very crucial and critical when we are looking at the second wave. Second wave eventually can overwhelm us and always will have more numbers than the first wave. We will need to increase our testing capacity, our tracking capacity, and containment. It is the current state is you have to contain the virus in your mind, in your body, in your environment, and if you are able to contain it, we can overcome this surge.
Thank you. Chandrasekhar is asking, what are the chances of catching COVID after 2 weeks from the first vaccine? And what are the mortality chances after vaccination?
So one thing is very clear cut, Chandrasekhar, that vaccine saves lives is the data which is available, but one dose may not be sufficient for that. You need to take both your doses and have sufficient neutralizing titer of antibodies. You can get even after vaccine, 1 dose, 2 dose, or after antibody production also after COVID, but it will be mild or asymptomatic COVID predominantly. And unless and until there is something called as immune escape, which is unlikely. So something which we know for sure is that we are seeing a lot of people with vaccination getting COVID because the overall test positivity rate is almost 20-25%. So 1 in 5 people are having COVID, say in a city like Mumbai. So we need to be very cautious and careful. And I still again reiterate that there's nothing, the best vaccine on planet Earth still will remain masking for the whole 2021 and 2022, independent of the best quality vaccines we get. Vaccines will definitely have an impact on the third wave, but will not have any impact immediately on the second wave.
Well, vaccines are not available, Dr. Shashank, for the last 3 days. So, what is the reason? And when would vaccines be easily available? Is there shortage of vaccination, or is there a delay in supply of the vaccination?
So I think vaccines are available in most of the centers. Let me put it in a different way. Vaccines are available in most of the centers, but in some centers, like private hospitals, it has got evaporated the supply. It's a supply chain issue. It's a logistic issue for its respective stakeholders from state and center should coordinate and resolve it. I'm reasonably certain that by next week, the vaccines will all be there in place, and we are going to have a vaccine mahotsav. So I think there will be sufficient vaccines available to all the eligible people who deserve it.
Thank you, Shashank. My friend, a neurologist staying in Chembur, the BMC came and suddenly tested a few families who had gone out for vacation, and none of them had any symptoms. But 5 of those families were completely positive. So this brings about a fact that there are thousands of asymptomatic carriers in Bombay and Maharashtra. So what is it that tells us, what is the lesson from this finding, according to you?
So you see, this is the invisible pool which I was talking about. And when you go out, you are exposed. You don't even know that you are exposed. So random testing was done. Random testing, accidentally this was discovered. And in this accidental discovery, these people had the potential, if they didn't know that they were COVID positive, to keep spreading the chain. And somewhere down the line, if it hits a vulnerable group, then it will actually disrupt that person's life. So it's very, very important to recognize that COVID is around and there is community spread of COVID. No two ways about it. There is community spread of COVID. It is everywhere. And therefore, we need to test frequently, regularly, particularly if you have history of travel and history of exposure to a likely exposed population. See, one thing very clear about the second wave, Guru Anna, is that this is happening to people who are less exposed from a better socioeconomic strata like middle class, neo-rich class, upper middle class. And that is where the pandemic has shifted from lower class. We are not seeing beyond double-digit numbers or maybe hundreds of numbers from the lower socioeconomic class and slum population of Mumbai. We are seeing it predominantly in middle class, upper middle class, and in the vertical high rises, not the horizontal high rises.
Fantastic. There's one question from Bangalore. The entire family was positive, and the 91-year-old father of 3 sons and 2 daughters came back completely recovered, but his higher functions were impaired, and he had some amount of hallucinations and lack of sleep, but it's better than before. Do you think it is because of the infection, or is it because of age, and how should we manage it?
So I think this is a person who needs neuropsychiatric care, and this is a importance of multidisciplinary care. Most of such patients who have come who are senior citizens have a very traumatic experience in the hospital settings, particularly during the COVID times. And definitely they need to be screened by someone like you, Guru Anna, to know whether there was a post-traumatic stress disorder which has led to this, which I would ask you to answer in a little detail, or a neurologist needs to clear them. Usually, post-COVID neuroinflammation is common, but is unlikely to the present the way they is present. Also, remember you are locked in. When you get COVID positive, you get locked in, and if you do not expose people inside the ICU also, and they don't see broad sunlight, they actually get ICU psychosis. Therefore, Guru, and I want you to tell people that if you have near and dear ones who got admitted to the hospital, and when they come back home, they feel that they have almost become like untouchables. They are seeing some spacesuit agents who are around them taking after them. They don't know whether it's a nurse, a ward boy, a doctor, and the whole experience can lead to a lot of trauma and agonizing position. So now, what are your tips for family members how to handle such an individual, and what are the tips for the individual? What should be done for such an individual?
Well, when they're elderly, remember that they should see the change of the day. They should see the morning sun, the afternoon sun, if possible, the afternoon light, if it's possible. And they should see the day starting from sunrise to sunset. That's number one. Number two, they should be allowed to talk about their experiences in the hospital, in the ICU, in their own words. Let them talk, let them use words flowery, abusive, funny, uh, very light-hearted, or whatever, and do not make fun of them at all. They might just say, "I saw these five ghosts in the ICU, and I was very scared to look at them. They had eyes like this, and this is what one 88-year-old man came and told me." And then these close relatives started explaining to them. They are not ghosts, they're doctors, they're nurses. Keep quiet. Let them vent in a language, in a narrative, in a style which they believe was true. And then when they calm down, they generally calm down. But some of those who are elderly have metabolic issues. Our brain is compromised with some amount of atrophy, age related, and they might take a little longer to come back to normal. At that point of time, look at the medication they're on. If they're on antihypertensives, Shashank, and if they're on other medications, check their electrolytes, check the vitamins, check the hemoglobin. At the same time, keep conversing, light music, sunlight. Take them for a walk around in the building or in the mall if they can, and slowly most of them settle down without medication. And if they do not settle down without medication, look for COVID encephalitis, impact of COVID as a neurotoxic in the brain, and also if they have nightmares, and if they sleep less, and if they are startled at night, they might need a small dose of psychiatric medication. But overall, you need a multi-pronged approach, a love affection, awareness of the day and the night, a lot of good music which they like, conversations if they like, and allowing them to vent and seeing that the metabolic parameters are taken care of. Most of them settle down. If not, you need to see a psychiatrist or a neurologist. Thank you, Shashank, for allowing me to answer this question. Well, there's a question. Someone has sacroiliitis, recurrent uveitis, and hepatitis B positive. Could you guide them about vaccine? Which vaccine should they take?
When you have multiple comorbid conditions, any vaccine can cause a reaction. It's not that it can't cause a reaction. Between the two, Covaxin may have a safer bet, but there is no hard and fast rule for it. So I think you need to consult your doctor, and your doctor should take a call who is taking care of you regularly. He knows your allergy history. He knows your biology of your virus, like you are harboring another virus. I'm certain that you are very vaccinated for other vaccines. So these are individual cases, and it is best discussed with your doctor. If I had a choice between the two vaccines, ideally both vaccines are equally good and equally effective. Probably my vote would have gone to Covaxin.
Thank you, Shashank. Beautifully answered. Now, again, a question. A lot of people have taken two doses of vaccine. And a lot of people have heard that after 2 doses of vaccine, they've had COVID and they have been hospitalized. How can this happen? A vaccine should be very protective. Uh, Vaccines, as we have heard in the past, when you take oral polio, you don't get polio. When you take smallpox vaccine, you don't get smallpox. So why is this happening?
So these are all primitive first generation vaccines. These are experimental vaccines. These are all in their emergency use. I would retract my word primitive, but I would say they're first generation vaccines. They have been developed at a ultra super fast track mode in last 6 months. They're excellent vaccines in terms of preventing death and severe disease. So they may not allow you to go on a ventilator or death, but they may not prevent infection. One thing is very clear: the current vaccines do not prevent infection, but they prevent severe disease and death. That data we know. And occasionally, in an occasional patient, in an individual patient, there could be a rare case of so-called immune escape. Now, clots are very popular. A lot of people think that this will cause clots. Incidence of clot is 1 in 3 million. So, you need to understand that don't let an exception be a rule. Exceptions are extraordinarily rare. They are unusual events. Yes, for that particular family and individual, it is very distressful. So I'm very mindful when I say this. But in the larger interest of population, in public health interests, this is a rare event. So I would not get too much carried away. Secondly, you see, we have developed a form of a vaccine hesitancy. We have not vaccinated adequate our senior citizens. That's my worry in the second surge. Three-fourths of Maharashtra's senior citizens are still vulnerable because they have not received their vaccine. A large proportion of our healthcare workers, at least 60% of them are vulnerable. So is the data with frontline workers. I would urge everybody that please take your vaccine shot if you're eligible and if you don't have a contraindication. Don't hesitate at all. This vaccine hesitancy because of 2 doses with immunity, with antibody, getting COVID should not deter you from not taking the vaccine. Because most people, even if they are hospitalized, usually will survive, probably will not need a ventilator, and it's very, very unlikely of any cause of death. That is why we are really vaccinating now. We are vaccinating to save lives. We are vaccinating to build a reasonable degree of immunity in the population so that at least we'll be safe for at least the duration for which vaccine will last. So, Dr. Shetty, there is a $1 million question. How long will a vaccine after 2 doses, their efficacy and safety last? It's all very, very anecdotal and presumptive. We have a guess estimate that these vaccines probably will offer protection from 9 months to 15 months. And therefore, it may be reasonable to say that if a given individual develops adequate titer of neutralizing antibodies, it is likely to stay in the blood and in the body for a period of at least 9 months, is the best estimate we have. COVID is a evolving science. COVID is just a year and a half old at worst, maybe 1 year and 4 months or 1 year and 5 months. And therefore, in this evolving science, we will keep changing the colors of COVID and we'll keep understanding better about vaccines. So these are new line vaccines, frontline vaccines, early vaccines. We'll have a nasal spray as a vaccine. We will have a multivariant and quadrivalent. You have so many strains now coming up, mutant strains. So you might have 2, 3 strains combined as a vaccine of different geographies. So we will see a lot of development in the vaccine development in the next 3 to 5 years. Because one thing is sure, Dr. Shetty, COVID is here to stay. At best, we'll be able to conquer some of these big surges, but some point of time it will get endemic, and some point of time, just like we treat malaria and dengue, we treat COVID.
Absolutely. I get a lot of calls, Dr. Shashank, of relatives of patients who have been admitted in COVID wards in different hospitals, especially private hospitals. And a lot of them call me up and say, can you transfer my patient, my brother, my sister, my wife, my husband, my mother, to a single room? And this entire craze for my relative to be in a single room in a COVID ward is a big question mark and a lot of calls. And I tell them, just tell me if I'm wrong or right. I tell them wherever they are, if they are with two or three patients in a very spacious room, it's always good because sisters and the nurses and the staff will always be there all the time. And also when there are 3 or 4 people, it's good to talk to each other and remain really connected so that they can inspire each other. Is it right to be in a room with 3 patients, or is it good for the close relative to insist that my relative, I want to give him the best care in a single room?
So remember that, Dr. Shetty, there are two sides of a coin, and we live in a democratic country. So citizens have a right to choose, and we should not be taking away that right from choice. But you are giving a very good rationale for breaking the chain of loneliness when you are self locked in COVID space. And therefore, probably it makes meaningful sense to ensure that these people who are there, if they are with a group, they should not feel hurt about it. In fact, they can have camaraderie, they can have some dialogue, they can have some conversation. But remember, India is a very unique country, and there's a lot of heterogeneity of type of people who you stay with, who you live with. People are very scared. So I think it can be very good to allay anxiety, very good to allay anxiety, but at the same time, it could also be counterproductive. So it is a choice and a personal choice which we have. But I completely agree with one sentiment of yours that overall for healing, it is probably helpful. But that has to be decided by the medical team there. See, if there is moderate disease, it is probably okay to look after. But somebody oxygenated is fighting for a breath. It can also have some trauma. So it's a double-edged sword. So I think this is a decision between the healthcare providing team,
Case by case.
the degree of severity of the illness, the need for oxygen and respirator, and also how the patient has mental abilities and capabilities. Normally, the psyche of the patient is that if he's in a single room, he's protected, he's on his own world, and he has connectivity to his own family because we have a digital mechanism. In the era when there was no digital mechanism, he didn't have a connectivity of a mobile phone or a TV. Probably you would be absolutely right, Dr. Shetty, that maybe a group is very healing. As a psychiatrist, I would ask you this question, Dr. Shetty. The group, you know, camaraderie, which is very well illustrated in Alcoholic Anonymous, okay, is very, very infectious and can have a very, very positive ripple. So if you get somebody very positive, you can have actually faster healing and recovery. Unfortunately, because there is a mix, because there is a panic, because there is uncertainty, because there is a widely fluctuating clinical status, okay, we are not so sure how people would behave. In COVID at night, the patient deteriorate and die. So if there is a vigil of someone else nearby, before even the nursing staff can be alerted, actually it can be life saving. So they should be given a urinal next to them, they should be given a pot next to them, because ideally that is the right way to do it, and that is the right way to approach it. But as a psychiatrist, Dr. Shetty, this is a very sensitive issue. What are your thought processes on this?
I would look at it in a very different way. Corona has brought us on our knees. Intercontinental ballistic missiles make no sense. Beyond that, nuclear bombs make no sense. The amount of dollars you have in your banks makes no sense. The skyscraper makes no sense. The mohallas don't make any sense. And the amount of land you have across different continents, many politicians have land across continents, makes no sense. So in Corona, when an invisible virus has brought you down, negated your visiting card, negated your social status, negated your educational status, it is time that we connect. And if possible, the experiences in our COVID wards where I talk to my physicians are that when they are together, because they are samadukhi, and because they are vulnerable, they're scared, they're very insecure, there's a lot of bonding happening inside the ward. There's a lot of exchange of stories. ये नर्स अच्छा है, ये डॉक्टर बहुत अच्छा बात करता है, इसको इतना ऑक्सीजन दिया, इसमें से बाहर निकल गया, वो एक पेशेंट को ऑक्सीजन ज्यादा लगा, he went to the ICU. We are all praying together, and that I think is a very beautiful feeling. But you're right, India is a democratic country, we have a right to choose. But I think what you said is beautiful. We need to understand the context, understand the needs, and see what is best we can do for the patient. Now, Dr. Shashank, there are different categories of admission. There are quarantine centers run by the corporation. There are domes. There are tertiary hospitals. There are hospitals and ICCUs. So, how does a patient choose where he wants to go? Because the patient is empowered and connected, wants to go to the best hospital, which has the best ICCU, even if he's asymptomatic or she's asymptomatic. This message should go very clearly to the people who are watching across the world, in different parts of the country and in different cities across the world. How should they choose the right bed? Should they push themselves and occupy beds which they should not ideally?
So, Guru Anna, this is a decision to be made by the healthcare system in the geography you live. So, if I am seeing a person who is 78 years old, hypertensive, diabetic, has kidney failure, and has fever, saturation of 85%, is frail. For me, this patient has to go to the hospital which has the best critical care unit. I am not having any doubts in my mind. But on the other hand, I have a 30-year-old, well, healthy, normal, no comorbidities adult who's pre-symptomatic except maybe a little bit of fatigue or tiredness or a little bit of headache. Probably can manage at home or go to a corona care facility if there is no separate room with a toilet at home. So, you have to triage these patients. And for this triaging, we need to have a team of healthcare professionals evaluating. Sometimes to our aid, what happens is simple tests like CBC, CRP, a CT scan, X-ray test also help. So in the complete blood count, if your neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio is abnormal, or a simple thing in complete blood count is very easy. It is 20-40 rupees. In that, if you get RDW, red cell width, if it is more than 14.5, we know that this patient is likely to deteriorate. So if we have some telltale signs that this patient is likely to deteriorate, the doctor will triage him. Who will go to oxygen bed, who will go to a regular hospital. Also, many people can have a bus and queue system. Many of them should go to the nearest facility where they can park, and if they deteriorate, they can be moved to a bigger facility. So I think we have to leave it to our healthcare doctors. And I think this is a time of digital connectivity. This is a time to get connected. You see, Government of India also runs a portal called eSanjeevani. And for senior citizens, sehat.com, SEHAT. It is free consultation for anybody. You want any doctor of any specialty in your geography, you have free consultation service, including Sundays. And you can register it on the My Government app. And it is called as eSanjeevani portal under the National Digital Health Mission. Not many people know about it. So it is, my suggestion is go to your family doctor. Your family doctor knows your pros and cons the best. In consultation with him and an expert, the decision can be taken where you should go. But do not delay going to hospital. Do not delay and try to do and mimic a hospital at home. Do not try to do things which are counterproductive against medical advice. And I think be cheerful throughout the process. Don't get irritable. Don't go into this why me syndrome. So, Guru, and my next question is to you. Many people, when they get COVID, they say we did everything perfectly. 1 year, not a touch of corona happened. We took our first vaccine, we took our second vaccine. अभी क्यों हुआ? एक बार भी मास्क नहीं निकाला. तो मेरे को, how do you answer that?
I'll tell you what, I have a lot of calls like this from my friends who have got corona inside the families. And they said, Harish, we have not gone out. But when we probe a little more, three things come to light. One is they've allowed entry to people inside their homes, which they had not allowed a year ago. And then they say that at the end of the story, and when you really inquire about it, that's number one. Number two is they also have believed that vaccination हुआ इसका मतलब I am immortal, corona आ ही नहीं सकता है, COVID आ ही नहीं सकता है, and then they drop their guard to some extent. And number three, they travel across the city or across the country because they have taken two vaccines. And the belief is, in the past, that's a past belief. It's a belief which has been wired because earlier vaccines were supposed to give absolute protection from the virus or from the bacteria for which the vaccine has been taken, but they don't understand that COVID vaccines are fourth generation vaccines. They are basically vaccines which are still under experimental observation, and that absolute protection is something which you will not get. As somebody said, COVID vaccination is not a bulletproof vest. I think that is something they have not done. Yesterday, my friend Mr. Ramnath called me up and said, "Harish, kaisa hua?" Then I gradually said, I didn't say virus kidhar se bhi aa sakta hai. This is a standard sentence which people doctors say. Virus kidhar se bhi aa sakta hai. We need to be rational. I asked them gradually, कौन आते थे घर पे? नहीं यार, वो एक ही मेड था पहले. अभी मैंने तीनों मेड को मैंने बुला लिया. I said, please go and check your maid. Then he said, हमारा Amazon वाला ऊपर तक आता था पहले. He was to come only down. Number three, my wife went for some only one or two parties after vaccination. And there lies the secret, because a lot of asymptomatic carriers are there. There's one more issue, Dr. Shashank. You and me and so many others spend our nights looking for beds for people whom we know or people who have contacted us who do not know. And we did that during the first wave, and we are now doing it during the second wave. And fortunately, we have been fortunate to find beds for patients, though sometimes a little late. How has the experience been for you, and what are the lessons you have learned, which you want to tell people so that they do not really burden the system with unnecessary demands, or they would burden the right person so that they get the right response, and the system runs very smoothly.
I think three things are very important. First thing is evaluate the patient in depth and detail. Get them connected to a healthcare provider who can assess their status, and then triage them whether they can stay at home, they need a corona care facility, or they need a hospital bed. And they need to do a periodic follow-up every day. Timing is most important in COVID. So daily monitoring and supervision under digital mechanism of the patient twice a day is crucial in COVID care. And therefore, in that COVID care continuum, I think, Guru Anna, it is very crucial to understand that not every patient needs to go to home or hospital, but every patient has a potential to go there. So we need to have the preparedness to go. What has crept in the minds of people is actually a mental issue. They have an anxiety that if I suddenly deteriorate and I don't get a bed, I will be in trouble. Rather than that, I just get out of the house. I don't infect anybody at home. I go and stay in a hospital, and then dekha jayega. If I deteriorate, I'll come back. I've had many people who have done this, gone to the hospital, after 8 days have come home, and on the 14th and 18th day have deteriorated and almost landed up with ventilators. So this is what happens. So the rational decision to admit should be left to your doctor. And if you know that there is no facility at home to handle you better, and you want to go to a corona care facility, you can do that. In Mumbai city, I'm told from tomorrow onwards, they may even open 5-star hotels where you can digitally be connected. And if you're asymptomatic, you can stay there so that you can at least take care of themselves. So this is something very, very unique, which people need to understand, that they have to be responsible for their own selves. Unfortunately, what happens is India, you get too much of free advice, and everybody has their little charana in it. And what happens is that leads to confusion. After some point, that confusion gradually creeps up into anxiety. And after a point of time, those multitude of clutter of advices lands up into a panic. And many a times, instead of taking a rational, sound, appropriate decision, you land up taking a reckless and impulsive decision. And this is a path, Guru Anna, you have shown the light to all of us, that rather than getting into a panic mode, we need to get into a more mature, non-impulsive mode, which is rational and what is the best case scenario. Sometimes a decision could still go wrong, but rather than getting into a self-blame mode, do at that moment what is most apt and appropriate and scientifically backed. Go by science, go by sometimes gut feeling, but don't go get carried away by emotions, panic, fear, anxiety. So my counter question to you, Dr. Urana, is many people come to me and say, मैं तो परफेक्ट है, लेकिन मेरा जो फादर मदर है ना, वो बोलते हैं हॉस्पिटल में जाने का, इधर घर पे नहीं बैठने का, तू कुछ हो गया कल तो हम लोग को मालूम नहीं, हम लोग तुमको लिफ्ट तक भी नहीं जा सकते हमको लेके. सो दे हैव दैट फियर. हम लोग रहता है 5वें माले पे, लिफ्ट ही नहीं है तो कैसा जाएगा तू, अब भी जा. How do you handle these people, Guru?
But the fears sometimes are very real. I'll tell you, Dr. Shashank, I had a very senior government officer who wanted to get admitted because his parents were very old. And the hospital sent him back because they felt that he did not need admission. But he was pleading with the hospital that his elderly people will get infected because of him. And once he was sent back, his wife got infected and his father-in-law, was 84 plus, got infected. And he found a bed somewhere in a remote hospital in the suburbs of Bombay. But the point is, sometimes it's so difficult because everybody would not live in big houses. Everybody do not have three or four latrines in the house and three or four bathrooms. But all the same, since you asked me, I think a continuous conversation of the scientific facts is a must with elderly people. Continuous would not mean 24 by 7. Gentle statements during the lucid period when the unconscious of the elderly person is open and is asking you a question in a trance state, and then if you give him facts, a large number of them are asymptomatic, a large number of them have no complications. The mortality has actually gone down, and this virus is infectious, but its lethality has gone down. Its virulence has gone, and that's much safer. And if I have this infection, I would really play safe. I'll be outside, and you don't get scared or worried at all. I'll use all scientific norms to see that I'm safe and you are safe. And this cannot happen by a curt sentence. This cannot happen by stating facts. Facts are very dry. It happens when you converse, and when you converse, there are emotions as well as facts. Emotions are the vehicle which where facts can travel much more effectively. And remember, Shashank, all of us have memories which are emotionally driven. We have happy memories because happiness has allowed the memory to be stored for a long time. We all have painful memories because those memories of humiliation and pain in anybody's life is stored because it's associated with the memory. So let the person share with their elders facts which travels and which is guarded or which is carried along with feelings, and conversation helps the elderly to calm down. Facts, dry facts, generally don't help. So this is very important. One more thing, Shashank, which I'm observing is now after the second wave, when people are at home, I remember one family, the lady said, my maids have stopped coming. There's only one maid who comes to clean my utensils. So I felt I should clean my fans. So she brought her ladder inside the house and started cleaning her fans. And she said, I saw the dust there and I wanted to clean it when I have time. And she fell down and she had a fracture. And I told her, what was the need? Because during COVID times, you may not get a hospital bed for non-COVID patients. Probably you may not find a doctor safely. During a weekend lockdown, you might not be able to reach a doctor. And if you reach a doctor, there's a chance that you are traveling in unsafe place and you might get infection. And she did that. And she brought COVID back home and gave it to other people. So what I told her at the end of the day, minimalism in food and minimalism in activity. The visible dirt on the fan is not as dangerous as the invisible virus which you might catch just because you want to clean your house and take risks. So please understand, my dear friends, minimalism with respect to food may be right for reasons of health and for reasons of wealth. And at the same time, minimalistic activities in the house which are less dangerous is important, and do not try and do things which are heroic or which you feel you should be doing because you have time. So protect your mind, but at the same time protect your body. A small dust in a windowsill, high up or on the fan, is not as dangerous as an invisible virus which you might bring when you go and meet an orthopedic surgeon or other doctor. Dr. Shashank, we hear about this. ICCUs can be made inside the house. There are agencies which just come up and say, ICCU तुम्हारे घर के अंदर हम fit करेंगे. I mean, doesn't sink in to me. And in an anxious environment, people might build an ICCU already so that they place it. It's like this, no, Shashank. When in an angst-driven world, if tomatoes go scarce, few families, anxious families will hold all the tomatoes which are available in the market. But in a world which is relaxed, they will say, tomato nahi khayenge yaar. जब आएगा तब खाएंगे. So in an angst-driven country, there are people who are selling ICCs inside the house. Is it practical? Is it viable? Is it effective? Is it safe?
Dr. Shetty, these are rarities and exceptions. In India, we are still a poor country with a very rich heritage and a very strong basis of equanimity and equality. Next week, we will celebrate Baba Sahib Ambedkar Jayanti. And I think we should be very mindful of the fact that if privilege rarities should not become a norm at all. So I don't think we should discuss all these exotic things which are neither safe nor appropriate nor prudent. I think if you are sick and you merit a hospital, you should be in the hospital because hospital is 24/7 with a system there, whether it is a 24/7 nurse, 24/7 junior doctors and senior doctors. It is a full-fledged functioning healthcare unit with uninterrupted supply of oxygen, which is the Sanjeevani or the lifeline for a COVID patient. It has 24/7 ventilators which are available, which can be managed not only by doctors and nurses, but technicians and biomedical engineers who also are toiling as frontline workers round the clock. So I think when we are in the situation of a disaster and a crisis, it is best managed in a healthcare environment. Some of these exotic things are done in chronic cases, in terminal cases, where we want to give with compassion on a compassionate ground, on an individualized ground, the family and that family member who's affected, some privacy and care. But that is an exception, not a rule. COVID is an acute condition, Dr. Shetty. In such acute situations, things change rapidly. It is impossible to dedicate a resource 24/7 at home. I feel it is cruel sometimes in this magnanimous world we are living in. Rather than that, that attention is better given in a high dependency unit or an intensive care unit of a high caliber and high order is far more prudent because the actions are reflexes sometimes. And therefore, I personally feel whether it is safety, whether it is effectiveness, this is something of the order. However, somebody lands up with a chronic, crippling disability, which merits long term nursing care, which is occupying the space of a hospital where there is no imminent danger to life, then rehabilitating that person in their household with their near and dear ones can actually be rejuvenating and can actually enhance recovery. But that is not a rule, that is an exception. In COVID, most people will go into the ICU and we'll only have two paths, and most recover, few succumb, and that is what we should do.
Thank you. Debolina is asking a question. Sir, my colleague and friends building, there are positive people. So in various floors, should the families undergo rapid antigen test, the RAT test?
I think it's not a bad idea to undergo a rapid test, but we always encourage RT-PCR test because RT-PCR is far more sensitive than the RAT test. But if you are into an anxiety mode and you feel that you have symptoms which could be potentially COVID, you want a rapid answer, do a rapid antigen test. If it is positive, there is no need to do RT-PCR. If it is negative, when you get symptoms, you can do an RT-PCR after 2 or 3 days. So I think it's not at all inappropriate. If you are living in a cluster ghetto, we call it as a cluster ghetto, and you need to do and contain yourself. This is containment strategies. And in the containment strategies in a cluster, a suspect cluster can test voluntarily and is encouraged.
Fantastic. Dr. Shashank, last two questions for the day. The first one is today is Sunday, and there would be a very high profile meeting in the state of Maharashtra to really decide what should we be doing. Do you have any premonitions of what will come from the meeting by the high level administrative machinery of the state of Maharashtra? Any premonitions, any predictions?
So Guru Anna, my ancestral surname has some astrological lineage. But I'm neither an astrologer nor I'm a scientist. And we have to go by data, and I have already answered that question in the beginning. that if we go by predictive logic, if a particular geography or a zone has adequate healthcare infrastructure and it's unlikely to get overwhelmed in the next 2 weeks, then that particular zone may be free from large restrictions. But however, if the zone is overwhelmed, overburdened, there might be much more restrictive policies. I think we should not look into speculation. Speculation breeds anxiety. Speculation breeds a lot of impulsive, inappropriate, illogical questions, and the ultimate outcome sometimes leads to two types of reactions. Some people will heave a sigh of relief. Some people will be angry. But remember, question is balancing life and livelihood are very difficult decisions. And we have a democratically elected representatives who are extremely capable with some of the best bureaucrats on planet Earth. And I'm certain that in their wisdom, they will take decisions which are most apt for our geography.
Thank you, Shashank. And to tell all the viewers that we have not answered all your questions today, and we'll be answering those questions next week for sure, or probably in midweek if we can. But before I leave you, Dr. Shashank, I would ask you: has there been a third wave in the last pandemic, 100 years ago, and will there be a third wave? Small wave, टाटा बाय बाय वेव, कोविड आया, जोर से आया, बाद में सिक्सर मारा, फिर जाता हूँ, अब अच्छा तो हम चलते हैं. Will there be a third small wave sometime in August,
So, Guru
based
Anna,
on history and
no,
based
no,
on
no,
science?
I'm telling you right now in COVID only. In many geographies and countries of the world, already a third wave has happened and gone, and a fourth wave has happened and gone. So remember that the waves will keep on coming and going. Whatever shall rise will come down. In COVID, as we rise, we shall come down. So Guru Anna, we should not think and get fearful about the third wave. We have to counter with a lot of mental strength, an appropriate mask in a clean, airy environment. The second wave, we must ensure that all eligible people get vaccinated. We expand our vaccination program when there is sufficient supply in the next 3 to 6 months, so that we can have a Tata bye bye to COVID as early as possible. I'm a diehard optimist, and Guru Anna, you will agree with me that I would like you to have the last word of your pearls of wisdom, that rather than ruminating about the waves to come, I would look at the positivity and the resilience and the strength COVID has given us. Because COVID has told us how to be minimalistic, how to rise for the occasion, how to counter any threat, and most important thing, COVID has been a great leveler. It has taught us humility. It has taught us how to handle uncertainty. So, Guru Anna, I have a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I think human beings are very profound, and such an uncertain epidemic, an epidemic which took us by surprise. Everybody on this earth has done some jugaad, some innovation, some change that has helped himself and his family, some change that has helped himself, his family, and his community, and some change that has helped himself, his family, his community, and the country at large and the earth. I would say, I would say that please do not underestimate your resilience. Please do not waste a crisis. Please do not look down upon the beautiful small things you have done inside your family, whether you are in a small house, big house, and please share these homilies, share this wisdom across board in whatever capacity you are and in whatever forums you can. You can share this in our forums also. And I would say, my dear friends, that this wave has come, this wave will go, we'll survive this. At the same time, let's look around, let's see whom we can help, let's see whom we can really support, let's see whom we can call up and say hi to them, let's see with whom we can crack our jokes, share our tears, share our joys. This is the time to look horizontal and share our joys, tears, kind words, and good stories. With this, I thank you all for being on the show. We have not answered all your questions. We'll come back to answer questions. And believe us, not because we would want to say something from our chest, but we want to say something from our brains. as scientists that we will be able to conquer this wave also, because every human being on this earth is optimistic and a large number of human beings are working on scientific principles and sharing those scientific principles. Let us help all. Let us help the earth. Let's help the Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. And let's talk positive. Let's not criticize and pull down anybody from whichever political party, from whichever sect, caste, creed. This is the time that the earth unites to fight the virus. With this, me, Anirudh Sapatnekar, the silent mover of this entire show, the man behind the show, and Dr. Shashank Joshi, say au revoir till we come back next week. Thank you.